Hello my friends, welcome back. At the time you're seeing this, it'll be the 1st of February. In the Celtic year it is known as Imbolc, when winter dies down and spring is born. Now, having the birth of spring in February is quite interesting and maybe confusing for some, because if you think about it, British weather, especially in February, either looks like this. Oh yeah, good old English rain. Can't beat it. Or this. But I believe this story I'm about to tell gives a little insight into why our ancestors perceived the birth of spring around February time. It also involves one of the most popular goddesses, especially in modern paganism till this day. And this is, of course, Brigid, or Bride. And this story is a Scottish piece of folklore that I'm about to tell you. It is known by the name Angus and Brigid, but I'm simply going to call it Brigid and the Cailleach. As our tale begins, it is winter still. The ground is frozen. Snow covers the landscape. The trees still do not have their leaves, except for the holly, the ivy, and the yew. They still have their leaves of green. And who was the cause of all this across the land? Why, it was the Cailleach, the crone of winter. She flew in the sky in the form of an owl. She would freeze the ground and the water surrounding it when she hit the ground with her mighty cudgel. She had sons, giants, who would throw rocks at each other as a game. And they ended up creating the mountain ranges of not only Scotland, but of the north of Britain. And one day, the Cailleach, in her owl form, was flying over the land until she spotted, walking through the forest, a young girl. Now, this was the most beautiful girl that the Cailleach had ever laid eyes upon. She had the fairest face and skin. Her hair was golden, like the morning sun. And whenever she would walk, the snow beneath her feet would melt away, leaving the green grass and maybe some extra little flowers. But I'll touch on those later. The Cailleach saw this and she was having none of it. She started to feel her powers waning. She started to feel her influence shrinking and almost disappearing just at the sight of this young girl. And she would have none of it. So she would transform into her normal form, and she went up to the young girl and asked her to complete some tasks. Now the Cailleach was a wise woman and she was very wiry. Her plan was to keep her in her service so that the young girl would not spread that kind of magic throughout the land and weakening her grip. And she thought that if she would do this, that winter would last forever. But that remains to be seen. And yes, the Cailleach gave her many tasks. She was very dutiful, did everything perfectly fine. But then the last task she offered was to clean the Cailleach's cloak. Now her cloak was dark. It was black. Black as the winter night. And it was very grubby. mainly because she had to deal with her sons throwing earth and boulders at each other. But she tasked the young girl to wash the cloak. Not only must the dirt come off, but it must be as white and clean as driven snow. That is how clean she wanted the cloak to be, thinking it would be the most impossible task in the world. But Bride was dutiful, which was her name, young Bride. She took the cloak down to the stream next to the Cailleach's home, and she started to clean the cloak. And she cleaned it, she cleaned it, she cleaned it, she cleaned it. Most of the dirt came off, but the cloak was still black. And she wanted the cloak white, like snow. But she couldn't. No matter how much she scrubbed, no matter how much she kind of put it all together, it would still be black. And her fingers were turning raw, red, and possibly almost gaining some frostbite, depending on how cold it was. But to her surprise, on the other side of the stream, there was a wandering magician. And he walked over to young Bride, bent down and looked at all of what was going on, and said to her, "I know who you are. I also know who you serve. Let me help." So, the magician held out a wand of holly, and he just tapped the cloak. And like that, the colour melted and wafted away into the stream to reveal the most whitest cloak anyone had ever seen. Just like the driven snow. Just like the snowdrop. I told you the snowdrop would come back. For the magician plucked up a snowdrop and gave it to the little girl, young Bride. And he said to her, "Take these two back to your mistress. She has been trying to hold on for power for far too long, but her time is almost come. She needs to accept what she has got coming, or face the consequences." And the magician left. Bride gathered these things, the snowdrop and the cloak, nicely folded, and took it back to the Cailleach, and relayed the message. Oh, there was something within the Cailleach. She just snapped. She flew into a rage. She took young Bride by the arm, whisked her away from the house, and locked her up in a cave underneath Ben Nevis. And sealed the cave shut. And carrying on with her normal tasks of letting winter spread across the land, the ice freezing, the ground, the water, the air around it. And it was like that for a good while. But over the Irish Sea, in the Green Isles, in Tirnanoog, the Cailleach had a son called Angus, and he was having these strange dreams. He dreamt of his mother, the Cailleach. He also dreamt of the young girl that he had seen a few times before when he'd come to visit his mother. And he wondered what had happened. He had this sudden feeling. Maybe it was fate, maybe it was destiny, or some kind of magical intuition. But he knew he had to go over and see where this girl had gone. So he travelled over the Irish Sea, went into Britain, and met up with his mother and asked her, what happened to the young girl that was working for you? I think Bride was her name, something like that. And just like what most mothers do, she passed it off, shrugged it off, did the whole, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, dear. I've never met anybody like that. I don't know who you're talking about. But Angus didn't believe his mother. He wasn't stupid. And she knew that probably wouldn't work. But she stuck to her guns. But Angus knew different. He went out of the cottage, searched everywhere, until he came across a trail of snowdrops. And he followed that trail of snowdrops. It weaved that way, this way, and it arrived at Ben Nevis. He got closer to the mountain range until he saw a sealed cave. And that's where the snowdrops stopped, and he knew that Bride was in that cave. So he did his best to try and break the seal of this cave. He hit and he hit and he hit. And back at the Cailleach's cottage, every time Angus would strike that cave entrance, she could feel her power draining, her essence failing. She knew that Angus had found the cave and was trying to break Bride free. Oh, the unbridled rage she felt. And then, when Angus broke the seal of the cave and rescued Bride, the Cailleach had one last trick up her sleeves. She stroked the ground with her cudgel and caused a massive snowstorm that engulfed the entirety of that area, the entirety of Britain, even. This was just to stop those two from escaping. But Angus also had a trick up his sleeve, for he had the magic of summer at his possession. And with a wave of his hand, he caused an opening, a path through the storm, and they made a break for it. Now, some say they escaped over the Irish Sea into Ireland. Some say they went further south into Britain. But the deed was done. The spell was broken, and the Cailleach was finally weakened. Oh, she cried. Oh, she yelled with fury and despair. But there was some part of her that felt a calling that her time on earth was over. And so she did one last final transformation. In owl form, she flew over the Irish Sea to the land of Tir and Og, her home, where she found the well, a special well, a well of youth. She had picked up the white cloak that was hers, that young Bride had cleaned. The Cailleach donned the cloak, strapped it on, and took a drink from the well. And as the dawning sun rose in the sky, the Cailleach melted away. Some say she fell into a deep slumber. Some say that she absorbed into the earth to feed the world and to feed young Bride. but we'll never know for certain. Young bride ended up spreading influences over for both Britain and Ireland, and she was known as Bride, but also as Brigid. And she became the goddess of the well and forge. She became the goddess of poets and the goddess of midwifery. She would rule over spring and summer along with Angus, who some say is Angus Og, god of love and summer. And when autumn came, she transformed into the mother. And some relate that stage of her life to a Irish saint, Saint Brigid. But when winter came on, she would age and become something that she did never want to meet again, but felt like she had to. So Brigid became the Cailleach once again. And that is the story of Brigid and the Cailleach. A nice glimpse into how our ancestors viewed the 1st of February. Brigid, as the goddess, has also been associated with the Saint Brigid. And the 1st of February, in the Christian tradition, is also Saint Brigid's Day. A nice bit of connection there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story. It was a bit of a quick one. I know my previous one was a bit longer. This was me still trying to get into the motions of this kind of interaction with you, my fine friends. And also, if you couldn't tell, I was a little bit nervous. But I will have definitely some more to come. Some of them will coincide with the wheel of the Celtic year. First is Imbolc. I might do one on the spring equinox. But look forward more to the 14th of February. I might have a little bit of a surprise for you, for you all, on that special time, not associated with the Celts at all, but one of good significance anyway. Thank you for watching, my friends, and I hope to see you again very soon. You take care now.